Hello and welcome to Story Time with Clawfurnicat. Today's episode we will be reading The Keepers of Hattu, Real or Myth, Volume 1 by Altanbar Al-Khalil. I was but a lad in the last days of the Great War, and subsequent war that devastated my homeland Hammerfell. I don't remember much of those days, other than having to flee my childhood home and escape to Cyrodiil. I have vivid memories of hiding in caves or old ruins during the day and doing our best to travel under the cover of darkness so as not to be detected. It was more like stumbling under the cover of darkness because the journey along the river was dangerous, especially for a family. I am terrified of caves to this day because of these memories. My family was not one of means, but my mother, Honora Tal Shinar, was an apprentice alchemist, and father, Khalil Bar Al Thadret, was a skilled craftsman and builder. So their labor was in high demand in Cyrodiil after the White Gold Coordinate was signed. They also insisted on the proper wording of their names using Tal, meaning daughter for females, and Baral, meaning son of for males. Hence my mother was Honora, daughter of Shinar, and my father was Khalil, son of Thadret. There were many refugees in those days, and mother knew many healing potions. That's weird. So we were looked after pretty well, all things considered. With the new treaty in place in the Empire, the Aldmeri Dominion was free immediately to muster most of their remaining forces against Hammerfell, and it was during this time that we fled our homeland. But once Father felt we were in relative safety in an area southwest of Coral, he would return to Hammerfell in defense of our country. These writings are the first-hand account of his time in the war, and more importantly, they may be the only eyewitness account of the mysterious Keepers of Hattu. This treatise is not an attempt to make a believer of you, dear reader, but simply one person's account of those days from which you are free to make your own conclusions. So with that, here begins the story as told to me by my father, and in his own words. It was sometime during the summer of the 4th era, 177, but I don't know when. Soldiers in the field didn't exactly keep a calendar in their pockets. Morale was horrible. We were very short on supplies, and it looked as if our country would be enslaved by the racist Aldmeri Dominion. Just thinking about them this many years later still enrages my heart. We were tired, we were hungry, and we were weak. We had camped in a small wooded area to the northwest of Rihad and northeast of Teneth. Unknown to us at the time, the elves were gathering forces for a combined assault from the sea via both port towns and by land across the river basin from Cyrodiil. They would have essentially flanked us to the east and south with only a small retreating route to the northwest into the plains, essentially surrounding 1/3 of our entire army. Had they been successful, the outcome of the war would certainly have been much different. Call it a divine gift from the gods, providence from Frandarhundin, or just dumb, blind luck, but a twist of fate that would determine the course of the war for the next 2 years come to pass. A runner approached our camp one day with an urgent message from General Hazan concerning the aforementioned Aldmeri attack plans. The message was simple. You are about to be obliterated. If you don't believe me, send 2 of your most stealthy scouts to the river basin and see to see for yourself. The message was signed as a friend, so its origins remained a huge mystery. But as a result of the tip, our forces were able to split into smaller, more rapidly mobile units and retreat to safer locations in the north. Nowhere was truly safe, but we were better off there than in the south. A few weeks later, we began hearing that the Thalmor leadership was furious with one of their new justiciars in the field, and we heard was named Arundel. It seems he got the blame for being careless and was the cause of the botched surprise attack that didn't happen. We somehow took a little pleasure from this news, as we also heard rumors of him demoted to what was essentially a lieutenant in their ranks, but those were just rumors and were unsubstantiated. We also heard that he was sent into the field after being one of the top commanders in the Imperial City, and after After it fell, he was once again held responsible for its fall. Around the end of the year, or the beginning of the next, we also started hearing about a story from Cyrodiil of an Imperial who was said to be a hero of the Battle of the Red Ring. Depending on who told the story, the man, who was said to only be named Val, led the main charge into the city across the single bridge and straight up to the main gate. Others said he single-handedly consumed the elves with fireballs from his eyes and bolts of lightning from his arse. But of course, those claims remain unsubstantiated. Either way, he was said to be a man whose wife and children were tortured and murdered, and their bodies were left rotting in front of the imperial palace for all to see. The Aldmeri often used this tactic and others even more heinous to intimidate the Empire. Once Val learned of his family's fate, it was said he went mad and began conducting covert operations, assassinating any Aldmeri he could find. As you can imagine, the Aldmeri didn't take too kindly to this, and Val was eventually captured and taken to the Thalmor. But the Thalmor feared making a martyr of him, so they forced the Empire to lock him away, presumably for the rest of his life. Now this is where the story gets interesting. The legend has it that Arundel was the officer that brutally tortured Val's family to death. Arundel also knew Val had led the charge in the Battle of the Red Ring, which was the biggest victory for the Empire in the war, and the single most important event that led to the White Gold Concordant. For this, he hated Val. This hatred was even greater than his overtly racist hatred, if that is possible. And for Val, the longer he stayed locked up in that dungeon in Imperial City, the more obsessed he also became. It is upon the setting of this stage that the final clash between these two men would ultimately culminate on the battlefield of Hammerfell.